Karen Pemberton stood waist-deep in the Willowbrook Community Pool at 6:47 am, fully clothed in her business suit, clutching a laminated copy of the HOA bylaws above her head like a waterlogged revolutionary. "This is COMUNITE property," she shrieked at the bewildered maintenance worker, who tried to explain that the pool was closed for cleaning. "I pay my dues, I'll swim when I want." The second shocking moment came when she refused to leave, instead floating on her back in her $300 blazer, reciting Article 4, Section 2.3 about resident pool access rights to anyone within earshot. By 7:15 am, a crowd of early commuters had gathered, phones out, recording the spectacle of their HOA board president having what appeared to be a very public, very wet breakdown. The third moment that would haunt Karen forever happened when she spotted her ex-husband Derek across the pool deck, dropping off their daughter Emma for summer swim practice. His new wife, the impossibly young and athletic Brittany, stood beside him in designer workout clothes, barely suppressing a smirk. Karen's grand gesture of defiance suddenly felt like the desperate act of a woman losing control of everything. "Mom, what are you doing?" Emma's voice cut through Karen's righteous fury like a knife through butter. The 12-year-old stood at the pool's edge, swim bag in hand, her face a mixture of embarrassment and concern that hit Karen harder than the chlorinated water she'd been treading for 20 minutes. I'm making a point about community standards," Karen stammered, finally swimming to the edge. But as she hauled herself out, designer heels squelching, mascara streaming down her cheeks, she realized she couldn't remember what point she'd been trying to make. The transformation had been gradual. 6 months ago, Karen had been a respected real estate agent with a thriving practice and a marriage that, while imperfect, had felt solid. Then Derek announced he was leaving her for his yoga instructor. The house went into foreclosure despite her successful career, and she'd thrown herself into HOA politics with the fervor of someone who needed to control something, anything, in her rapidly unraveling life. "Mrs. Pemberton," said Janet Morrison, the HOA vice president, approaching cautiously. "The board is meeting this afternoon to discuss recent incidents." Recent incidents. Karen's jaw tightened. That had been the matter of Mrs. Chen's garden gnomes, violation of aesthetic standards, the Johnsons' basketball hoop, improperly positioned recreational equipment, and last week's heated confrontation with the new neighbors about their dog's barking schedule. Each battle had felt necessary, important, a way to maintain order in a world that seemed determined to spiral into chaos. "Let them meet," Karen said, wringing pool water from her blazer. "I know those bylaws better than anyone. This community needs someone who isn't afraid to enforce the rules." Emma walked away without another word, following Derek and Brittany toward the parking lot. Karen watched her daughter leave, feeling something crack inside her chest that had nothing to do with the cold morning air hitting her wet clothes. She didn't know it yet, but by sunset, her entire world would change again. Karen arrived at the emergency HOA meeting that evening armed with 3 binders of documentation, a fresh blazer, and the kind of rigid composure that comes from spending 6 hours researching property law and practicing speeches in the mirror. The community center's fluorescent lights hummed overhead as 27 residents filed in, their faces ranging from curious to concerned to openly hostile. "The pool incident this morning," began Janet Morrison, "was just the latest in a series of concerning behaviors." Concerning. Karen shot to her feet. "I was exercising my rights as a dues-paying resident. If people bothered to read the governing documents instead of treating this community like their personal." "You screamed at the Patel family for having a birthday party that went until 9:15 p.m., interrupted Tom Richardson from the back row. "You called the police on teenagers playing basketball. Because noise ordinances exist for a reason." Karen's voice cracked slightly. She could feel the room turning against her, the same way she'd felt Derek slipping away month by month, excuse by excuse. The presentation Janet had prepared was devastating in its thoroughness. Complaint after complaint, documented incidents, photographs of Karen measuring grass hikes with a ruler, audio recordings of her 40-minute tirade about mailbox positioning. Each piece of evidence felt like a small death, a confirmation that she'd become someone she didn't recognize. The board has voted, Janet announced. Effective immediately, Karen Pemberton is removed from her position as HOA president and banned from all common areas, pending a psychological evaluation. The room erupted. Karen felt the walls closing in, her carefully constructed authority crumbling like sand. But it was Mrs. Chen's voice that cut through the chaos. She needs help, not punishment. The elderly woman stood slowly, her weathered hands gripping her walker. I've lived here 15 years. I've seen Karen before all this started. She was kind then. People going through divorce, losing homes. Sometimes they break in ways that hurt everyone around them. Karen felt tears threatening, her throat constricting. The room had gone quiet, 27 pairs of eyes studying her with something that looked disturbingly like pity. I was trying to maintain standards, she whispered. Someone has to care about this place. But not like this, said Mr. Johnson, the man whose basketball hoop had sparked 3 separate formal complaints. Not by making everyone afraid to live in their own homes. As the meeting dissolved into smaller conversations, Karen gathered her binders with shaking hands. She'd lost her marriage, her house, and now the one thing that had made her feel important, needed, in control. Walking to her car, she found Emma sitting on the hood, having somehow gotten Derek to drop her off. I heard what happened, Emma said quietly. Dad says you're going through a hard time. Karen almost laughed at the understatement. Instead, she pulled her daughter into a fierce hug, breathing in the scent of chlorine and strawberry shampoo. I think I forgot who I was supposed to be, Karen admitted. Maybe you can figure it out again, Emma said. But Mom? The pool thing was really weird. For the first time in months, Karen genuinely smiled. As they drove home to Karen's cramped apartment, neither of them noticed the mysterious black sedan that had been parked outside the community center all evening, or the woman inside taking photographs through a telephoto lens. Some secrets in Willowbrook ran deeper than HOA violations.